In this episode of the Misaal podcast, you will hear my conversation with Neelam Shoaib. She's the co-founder and COO of Shadiyana, a marketplace that makes planning a wedding stress-free. She talks about using the process of elimination to work on the wedding marketplace idea, the customer discovery process, subscription versus commission pricing for service providers, building a brand that creates a flywheel, and using content marketing as a foundation for generating traffic and helping the consumer. Let's listen in. Welcome to the Misaal podcast, Neelam. How are you?
I'm doing good, Zahid. Aap kaise hain?
Alhamdulillah, thanks for asking. So you and Iza both have been on quite a few podcasts. So I am trying to basically ask you questions that you haven't been asked, or I'll try to. But let's just start off by, telling us a little bit about yourself. Iza, your co-founder, and how did you come about with the idea for Shadiyana, and what problem are you specifically trying to solve?
So my name is Neelam Shoaib. I am the co-founder and COO of Shadiyana, and I've always never been that. So my journey started out as being a software engineer from NUSC. I studied with Iza Zaman, my best friend, as well as partner and everything else. We were both software engineers. हमने NUSC से graduation की, and then mini identity crisis के बाद we went into the corporate sector because of course we had to try the ground, how our jobs are like. और हमने Iza Teradata and then Jazz चली गई. I went on to Zong और हमने वहाँ पे jobs की. It was a fun experience. It was a good learning experience. लेकिन हम दोनों को periodically वो आते झटके आते, कि we need to do something else in life and all that. And following that, Iza went on to becoming a Fulbright scholar, and I went on to start my master's. It was more of a buffer period so that we can think कि अब हमने आगे क्या करना है. And Iza was in USA, I was here in Pakistan, and we would brainstorm for hours and hours on what to do about the future. I wish I could tell you there's this story motivate us to do that, but in a nutshell, we are very systematic and analytical people. So we listed down like a whole hundreds of ideas, और उनको हमने points assign किए which inspires us, which is a good problem to solve in Pakistan, and how we can contribute. And Shadiyana was a clear winner in all that. We really love weddings. We are outgoing people, both of us, and we've been involved in a bunch of weddings of our siblings, family, friends, वगैरह. So it just made natural sense to transition into a startup of the wedding industry, as well as the fact that wedding industry in Pakistan is huge. But the thing is, Pakistan में इतना काम इस पे हुआ नहीं हुआ. जो चीज़ चलती आ रही होती, even though our neighboring countries as well as USA में इस तरह के सारे models exist करते हैं, they're very successful. But it just doesn't make sense कि पाकिस्तान जहाँ पे 5 days हर wedding के function होते हैं, यहाँ पे कोई automation नहीं, यहाँ कोई digitalization नहीं, there's no creativity here. And people are just more focused on getting the bare minimum done, which is booking vendors, क्योंकि उसमें इतना time लगता है, frankly speaking, that they can't focus on anything else. So this is the motivation from running Shadiyana comes in.
So one of the things that I learned about Shadiyana, how it came to be, the customer discovery process, and that was very intriguing to me because you are at a stage where you can talk about that because it's still probably fresh. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did you figure out what kind of customer you should be serving, and how did you go about doing the discovery process?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. Customer discovery is a never-ending process. हम अभी भी customer discovery कर रहे होते हैं. We learn new stuff. And the interesting thing about customer discovery is that what people say and what people want, आपको वो gap identify खुद ही करना पड़ता है. Same case for us. हमने जब we were interviewing photographers, makeup artists, wedding venues, as well as the people who recently got married and the people who were planning on getting married, हमने सब sites को ground हमने cover करने की भरपूर कोशिश की. इसी चक्कर में हमने when we interviewed like more than 100 people, or we got like a lot of information. Both sides weren't happy with each other, the vendor side as well as the people who are planning their wedding, the consumer side. And there was this just gap of blatant miscommunication and delays that ruined both parties mood in planning something. And of course for the vendors, they have to provide a service, but it's expected that they have to be very responsive on their social media, regardless if they are working then and there. And consumers कहते हैं हमें of course special treatment मिलना चाहिए क्योंकि हमारी शादी हो रही है. It's like a huge event. What could be more important for anyone else? So ये चीज़ हमने I think what the users are saying, और हमने इसको ना basically वो करना होता है to make a platform that where both sides are happy without compromising on anything else.
One of the things that I really admire about what you guys are doing is basically marketplaces are very difficult, right? For marketplaces to actually take off and scale, it's very difficult because there's always this chicken and egg problem, right? But I think what you guys have started off with, which I understand is basically a subscription model. So your customers basically the provider, the service provider. So you have a subscription for them, right? So for you, the end goal basically is to make sure that the customer flow, keeps increasing, because the more customers you can send their way, more you can justify, maybe having more premium prices, more premium packages. So how did that happen? Like, you could have basically come up with an idea where you would have said, like, what, once we connect the photographer and the customer, for example, they can figure out the payment, and whatever the payment is, like, if it's 5,000 rupees, we'll just take a cut, right? That could have been an option too, but you went with subscription. So can you talk a little bit about that? How did you come to that, conclusion that it's better to go with subscription?
I think background is that Isa and I, we both are engineers. We had at least zero business sense back then. And we were about to, pick a commission-based model just because it's the norm. कि अक्सर हर कोई यही कर रहा होता है, and we didn't know there were subscription-based models or other options even. So we of course floated with a lot of people, and one of our mentors, Kit Needham, she advised us to go with subscription-based models because she believed the fact that since we are a small team, it would be hard to manage this bypass when vendors and customers become direct. Who will we run after to? So हमने उनकी advice ली. हमने कहा okay, subscription-based model would be relatively easier to implement, even though a lot of people in Pakistan really discouraged us that it will not work and subscription-based models in Pakistan do not work. But if we do look at a bigger picture and not call it a subscription-based model, हर जगह subscription-based model चल रहा है. Schools की fees, दूध वाला, newspaper, हर जगह subscription-based ही होती है. It's just that we haven't called it that, so लगता है कि ये तो चलेगा ही नहीं. And only Netflix has, the authority to do that. So, but हमने trial and error किया. हमने कहा startup is all about experimenting. And as soon as we figured out it worked for us, we stuck to it.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it's a good way to move forward. The reason being is that it's very difficult to do, the commission part, because once the photographer or, the venue gets in touch with the customer, then there is absolutely no reason for them to, involve you, right? They can, bypass you, and that's not a good idea, right? Because you're not going to make any money if that happens. When we talk about when we talk about the how big the market is for weddings, right? For India, I know it's around $40 to $50 billion, right? In the US, US, I think the biggest market for weddings, it's $70 to $80 billion. What do you think Pakistan? Where does Pakistan fall?
I think मैं आपको पाकिस्तानी रुपीस में ज़्यादा बेहतर बता सकती हूँ.
Okay, sure.
So it's estimated around 56 billion Pakistani rupees, and also okay. I'm sure it's a bigger market because sadly काफी सारे business registered नहीं होते, तो इतना आपको flow of transactions नहीं पता होती. And the thing is, people assume weddings as just marquees, photographers, and makeup artists, but it's so much more than that. It's the textile industry, it's jewels and precious stones की industry. It's like a huge, huge market, और इतनी चीज़ें इसके अंदर आती हैं. Floral industry खास तौर पे जो like a huge demand की है, और all these big industries से आपको एक big wedding मिलती है in the end. That's the byproduct, and that's why it's a huge industry in Pakistan. You know that in the year 2020, 2.4 million people got married. That's like a huge number.
This is during COVID.
Yeah. COVID did not stop any weddings.
One thing that I keep coming back to is when you serve a customer, people get married once, right? So your customer comes to you and, goes through the venue and books a photographer. That's it. That's done, right? How do you convince yourself that, we have to provide the best service or the best experience so that this customer who, is going to get married once, but we want this person to keep referring us new people, new customers over time. So that's brand building, right? So the loyalty, like, if meri shaadi hui hai, to mere bhai ki shaadi hogi, then I'll go through you again. How do you go about, doing that?
Currently, Shadiyana is like the booking.com. Anyone can see the different vendors and वो उनसे connect हो सकते हैं. But the thing is, we don't just, let chance or let vendors or consumers, let them be. We do बार बार उनको हम पिंग करते हैं, पूछते हैं कि is this something we can do to help? Is this, कोई miscommunication तो नहीं हुई? How is the deal going? How is the planning going? We ask them, everything. ताकि हम, and we end up, establishing such a really nice connection, a genuine connection with customers as well, that they feel special too. And also we do think that we have a responsibility for our consumers. It's a big day for them, and we cannot just assume and think our product is the best product, it will go well and all that. We have to be on top of if any issue occurs. कभी रेयरली कोई इशू आ भी जाता है तो हम फौरन वहाँ पहुँच जाते हैं ऑन ग्राउंड. We say कि okay, what happened, where did this happen, and let's just resolve the matter, ताकि चीज़ smoothly जाए. It's all about the customer, जो consumer है basically, कि उसका wedding day अच्छा जाए, उसका experience अच्छा जाए.
During your time, like building Shadiyana, did you come across anything that was like some insight that you discovered? For example, like I personally think when I think of a Pakistani consumer, I think the consumer is more interested in saving money, so very price conscious compared to saving time, right? Like, people will waste time just to save, few rupees here and there. So that always is the case, especially culturally. So is there something that you figured out while, building Shadiyana, where you said, what, people are price conscious, so we will be taking certain decisions so that, because when you tell someone, for example, like, we're saving you time, so we're charging you money for that, that doesn't jive well, right? Like they're like, what, we have a lot of time, so we can do this ourselves. So what was something that about customers that you felt like you learned while building Shadiyana?
Customers very much want reviews, क्योंकि शादी is a huge expense. लोग अपनी life savings लगा देते हैं. So they want reviews की quality चीज़ मिल रही हो. And if they're not reviews present या कोई backed up by other people नहीं है, it's they will not go with that service. And खास तौर पे even though पाकिस्तान की एक price conscious market है, but for weddings they are not they wouldn't compromise too much. They would think that, okay, this is our big day, it's going to only happen once, so let's make the most of it. Beshak small scale ho, big scale, that doesn't matter, it just the quality should be there. So that's what we've noticed about our consumers. This is one aspect in life. हर जगह bargaining कर लेंगे, करते भी होंगे, लेकिन they do want that good label that's associated with quality in the wedding industry, and they'll pick that person.
I had a follow-up question to that. Of course, like the decision-making process for a customer, because when they discover your website, of course, they're going through vendors and all, everything. Like, how do they make a decision? So basically, social proof, I guess, is one of the ways that they make a decision, looking at reviews and all that stuff. So great. So you answered 2 questions right there. So my next question is, like, when going through your website, I discovered that there is, so you do a lot of content marketing. Like I saw the blog and I saw like the articles there. So I am of course into content, and of course I saw that. I'm like, okay, this is like great strategy to like, bring customers or bring users to the website who are just looking for basic information. Like you're not selling, like, what, before you read this article, you have to, book a photographer with us. You're just talking about like, okay, this is what happens when you get married, before you get married, after you get married, this is what you should do, etc., etc. Was that something conscious?
You just hit the bullseye. हम लोग बहुत ज़्यादा aware है that we have a moral responsibility on our shoulders, as well as the fact that there are a lot of things जो पाकिस्तान में sadly available नहीं है या misinformation होती है. तो हमारी marketing strategy basically is talking about really important social issues like जहेज issues, joint family में अगर आप रहना है तो किस तरह आपको etiquettes हों, things like that. हम हर चीज़ को tap in करते हैं, before wedding, after wedding, during wedding day क्या चीज़ें होती हैं, and even a lot of taboo stuff as well that people don't usually talk about, but it's associated with weddings, with rishtas and all that. So it's just that we love talking. We love talking about stuff, especially these difficult things. So, and if we won't talk about it, who else will talk about it? And we my marketing strategy is sahi hai कि we do not push brand to the consumer. We don't say, oh, check out our Shadiyana, our site, our this will happen, that will happen. So हमारी strategy यही है कि that we'll show content to the people that they want. Like some of our content is really resourceful, such as like if you want jewelry shops in the Twin Cities, these are some of the jewelry shops. And of course, it does we do not charge people for this information, or nor we do that until we have that information on our site. We say we need to give this information out until the gap from our side is covered up. So, and we put that information up, and we just hope that people like our content enough to check out our site. It is as simple as that. That's what we like, that's what we are comfortable with doing. Maybe not the best marketing strategy, but it just we sleep better at night, and we feel like we are doing work in a I feel like we just are doing some part in the society, at least through content or something. अगर 100 लोगों को हमारी एक कोई पोस्ट आती है कि एक बंदे को भी पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट जरा सा भी हो जाए, we think it's like a huge win. We get really happy.
Following up on that, like, so content marketing is one way you're getting users and visitors to your website. Are there other marketing channels that you have used that have worked really wonders for you, and if you could share those?
I would definitely recommend someone to who's starting their business to focus on SEO. It's such an underdog that people think, oh, okay, we'll do it, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think it's a huge untapped potential isme, because not everyone's going to type your website or go to your social media and then check this out. People are going to search for things like something very user centric. Like they're not going to search for the venue they want. Perhaps they'll probably search what's the best wedding venue in Islamabad, and they expect the response to be there. Instead of us manipulating his behavior, we have to consider the user's input, and then that's how you should come in front of the customer. So I think SEO is like a huge underrated and wonderful tool for someone to learn and go with their business. And that's what we implement too. So if anyone searches the best wedding venues in Islamabad, we show up on the first page of Google, and that is by intention and design.
I was expecting you would say TikTok, and that's great that you didn't say TikTok. So that's great. So you're using old school marketing techniques, basically, being there when people are searching for people that they would need vendors for the wedding ceremony.
Yeah, as well as for the fact we do put up videos up, but not videos that such are really cliche or something like that. We, as I mentioned earlier, that we tap into a lot of social issues. Like just a couple of weeks ago, we had a relationship and marriage counselor on our Instagram, and we had a live video, and we had a lot of crowdsourced questions that we asked, and people were like so amazed. And that we also cover venues, photographer studios, as well as makeup artist salons, so that people know that what it is actually like, what's the ground reality, rather than us just providing the information. I think people want that extra mile, that inside scoop and all that to make the decision, and that's what we provide with videos. And I do suggest Instagram Reels are a really good tool these days. Instagram is actually incentivizing people who use Instagram Reels, so it's good to jump on that bandwagon right now.
So I mean, you mentioned quite a few things, right? You talked about marketing, you talked about the product, you talked about we didn't talk about the tech much. So can you tell me a little bit more about like the tech? Was it like built in-house? Because I know you of course are technical, your co-founder is technical too. Did you guys build this in-house or did you outsource it? And how many people does it take to run Shadiyana as of right now?
So when we started, we were both doing our masters and we did not have too much time, as well as for the fact that we won a grant, and that grant was only receipt based for very specific things. So at that time, we had to hire two really wonderful developers, and they worked with Shadiyana, and they built the base model of it, and then they left. When they left, Iza and I, we both jumped into the the tech side of it, relearned what they did, and added more stuff as well. Of course, a product is always dynamic. You have to keep it updated. And then we realized that we can, as founders, we cannot do everything. So we should know a lot of stuff, but we cannot do everything. So we hired interns working for us, our juniors from us basically. And even right now, we have 15 interns working under us. That's our model. We work with interns who have like a fresh mind, who really want to work hard, and that's how we are, comfortable working with. We are really, we love guiding people, and if we know the knowledge, and we are receptive to if they have, better ideas to implement. And interns, as student interns, I think there's like a lot of untapped potential that really want to prove themselves and learn skills. It's like a really wonderful combination if one can find really good people. And as I mentioned, we have 15 interns. We do have one full-time employee, and that is it. Isa and I, we run the entire ship right now.
I know you are bootstrapping, so have you thought about fundraising? Have you had any interest from VCs, angels so far?
That's an interesting question. Yes, so it's very seasonal. Sometimes we think that we do need investment, and other people are raising investment. Maybe we should raise investment as well. And there are days when we think, oh, we are revenue generating. Do we need investment? We are on a good path right now. It all depends upon, varies from day to day. And some investors have approached us. They have shown interest in investing in Shadiyana, but we are also a bit selective of the people or the companies who want to invest in Shadiyana. We just don't want anyone and take anyone's money. We want someone who can contribute to our company, or has experience, or is of a certain mindset that can provide us the support that we need to take Shadiyana to the next step. There are a lot of factors here, and I wish I could give you a better answer, but it's very mood dependent.
No, this is good. This is good. So let's just imagine that some investor is listening to this and watching this. So what would you say? Where do you need the help from the investor side? Like if someone is to bring their money, where else would you need help from?
I would be, I have to acknowledge the fact that money is an important thing in a startup. It may be the secondary thing, but it is definitely important, especially if you need to expand. And we all know that expansion, especially in other cities, is going to cost a lot. Recently, we went to Lahore for our expansion purposes, and even that one short trip costed us. Of course, it did. So we have to keep in mind that expansion does require money. And if there's people like me and Iza, who are just the common people of Pakistan, if they don't have too many funds, that is, then I think in going with the investor route is a really good option, especially if you want to expand, if you want to grow at a really fast pace. Then investment round, going with investors is a really good option.
Basically, you want someone who can help out or lend expertise in terms of operations. Basically, operations is where you would need help with, and someone on the ground, someone who knows the ground realities and all that stuff. So far you have had so you guys started back in 2021, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So far you, of course, you mentioned that you're revenue generating and all that stuff. So what has been the biggest challenge, and how did you go about figuring that, problem out, and what was the problem? And if you could talk about the solution.
I sound like a broken record. I think every day is a different challenge, हर mood पे depend करता है. So I think initially थोड़े इस तरह के issues थे कि how are we going to pitch our product to the people? We've never done this before. We were willing to do it, but we were scared how we were going to be perceived. But once we had to do it, वो हो गया. हर दिन की डिफरेंट चैलेंजेस थे. फिर देन वी केम ऑन टू मार्केटिंग. हमने कहा मार्केटिंग कैसे करेंगे, हमें तो मार्केटिंग आती नहीं है, हम तो गीकी लोग हैं, वी हैव नथिंग ऑन अ बेल्ट, नो एक्सपीरियंसेस इन दैट. लेकिन वो भी हो गया. इस तरह की चीज़ें होती हैं. बट एक परसिस्टेंट इशू रहता है हमारी लाइफ में, विच इज़ अ बिट safety के around, I think so. Since Isa and I, we both are female co-founders, and that has benefits as well as a lot of cons to it. जिस तरह के accessibility and going to vendors, इनसे मिलना, हम बहुत ज़्यादा sales in person भी करते हैं. सो दैट हम जब वेंडर्स के पास जाते हैं, इट्स नॉट समटाइम्स सोशली एक्सेप्टेबल कि लड़कियां अकेली पहुंच गई हैं वेंडर्स के पास. दे डू लुक एट अस इन दे से आपके साथ कोई है भाई और समवन, एंड देन वी लाइक ओके वे डू वी ब्रिंग अ ब्रदर. ठीक है, आई एम यू नो I have only sisters and where do I bring one? So but you have to do these things. और खास तौर पे situations like जिस तरह कि एक अभी recently एक really traumatizing issue चल रहा है in फैसलाबाद. तो when these incidents happen, it does damage our self-confidence, as you know, it adds a fear factor in us. What if we go to this XYZ place and the people are not what we thought they were, या इस तरह की चीज़ ना हो जाए. Especially अब permissions भी लेनी पड़ती है हमें as females, of course. I can of course say on from my side खास तौर पे कि my parents are not very comfortable कि मैं कभी उधर भाग जाऊँ कभी इधर चली जाऊँ. It's not an office kind of a job. It's startup में सब कुछ है और आपको सब कुछ करना पड़ता है. और कोई आपको करके नहीं देगा. तो when it's when the lines are very blurry, तो आपको ना आपकी फैमिली को बेसिकली इट्स अ टेस्ट ऑफ स्ट्रेंथ फॉर एवरीवन, नॉट जस्ट फॉर द फाउंडर्स, फॉर द फैमिली एज वेल एज फॉर द फ्रेंड्स. तो आपको परमिशन लेनी पड़ती है अबाउट इफ आई कैन गो देयर प्लीज, एंड समटाइम्स दे आर वेरी रिलक्टेंट, समटाइम्स दे से ओके आई विल वेट इन द कार. तो पूरी फैमिली इम्पैक्ट होती है. एंड I think mobility is definitely something is us especially feels very strongly about this. Very less public transport. हर लड़की के पास गाड़ी नहीं होती. If you go on a scooter, you get 1,000 stairs. As well as safety is like a huge concern, especially for me as well. कि कहीं भी पहुंचना हो कैसे पहुंचेंगे, वहाँ पे कुछ हो ना जाए रास्ते में. कभी कभार ऐसे माइनर इंसिडेंट्स हुए हुए हैं. कैट कॉलिंग इज लाइक अ वेरी कॉमन थिंग समटाइम्स. But I get that we have to grow a thick skin, and we have done that. But it is an added thing. We have to run a company as well as think about these things, कि ओके अब ये कैसे करेंगे वो कैसे करेंगे. हर जगह हर किस्म के लोग डिफरेंट होती है, एंड देयर इज नो रूल बुक फॉर इट. इवन दो समटाइम्स आई इवन कैरी अ टेजर इन माई पर्स, बट आई थिंक दैट विल आई बी एबल टू एक्चुअली यूज इट. पहले तो मुझे 10 घंटे लगेंगे अपने पर्स में स्क्रोल करने में, अनपैकिंग करने में, एंड देन आई विल बी लाइक ओके can I use it? Will it hurt? Which is the end, And that's basically, something that does worry us sometimes.
I mean, it's something that, of course, someone like me would take for granted as a man, as a male. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I know it's not easy to share such things. But you have a smile on your face, and you're so dedicated that you're doing it. So I literally I can't imagine being in your situation. But honestly, if I were in Pakistan, I wouldn't feel safe meeting people for the first time, or like people like I was not sure about. But you're brave enough to do this, and God bless you, basically. So yeah, I mean, this like the whole Shadiyana, I mean, it's like, for me, it's like I'm really excited to see where you guys end up, and of course I feel like you are like the prime candidate to raise funding. There are startups that shouldn't have raised funding, but they have. So you are a revenue generating startup, and I would want eventually you guys to raise money. But where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What's the North Star metric? What does success look like to you?
That's a really interesting question. आपको 3 years का तो फ़ौरन बता सकती हूँ. We have this target कि हम लोग शादियाना should be on the tip of every person's tongue as soon as they find their soulmate, they get engaged, they get nikah या बात पक्की हो जाए ना किसी की, then they think okay now we have to go to शादियाना. तो पाकिस्तान में तो हमने definitely शादियाना भी करना है. उसके बाद we do want to expand internationally as well, especially जहाँ पे similar cultures हों पाकिस्तान के and all that. जो आपने North Star metric की बात की, that is a very interesting question. We always think about that. And we think the quality of users is something, is something that's really important to us. Because anyone can come on Shadiyana, and, that's not the goal. And we define it by how much time a user spends, how serious are they. And that is one of the parameters that we measure for users. Our current average session time is 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So we can, easily say these are serious customers. These are the users that are going to benefit the vendors. and in turn, of course, indirectly benefit us. So this is something that we can tap into this market and measure this point. Interestingly, we have noticed that a lot of people from different cities like Va, they spent on average of 20 minutes on our site, and we get really worried, like what are they seeing? And but it's also really rewarding that we think that okay, so that means we are providing something that they are not getting from anywhere else, and it's very you feel really good that someone thought that our site is worth 20 minutes or even 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's like we get really overwhelmed with happiness that our product is providing something that people can relate to or get information that they otherwise cannot get. So I would definitely call our North Star as the time a user spends, because that directs to the quality of the user.
Basically, I run a content site too, right? If someone spends a lot of time on my site, I get worried because I'm thinking they're copying the content. So we both have like different, ways to look at the same thing, right? So yeah, anyways, that's great. That's great. Well, I'm really excited. Really want to see you guys flourish. So best of luck. And thank you once again for being on the Misaal podcast. It was lovely talking to you.
Likewise, Ahid. Likewise, Ahid. I really love these platforms जहाँ पे startups को खास तौर पे बुलाते हैं, उनके issues सुनते हैं. I super admire that. I know मैं ऐसे कह रही हूँ, but it's I really admire this कि आप अपना time निकाल के you're giving back to society in this way, which is super amazing.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to the Misaal podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and will thank me by writing a review or sharing it on social media. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks again. See you soon.